Well, greetings, Moody Theological Seminary Greek geeks, and welcome to week 5 of Greek syntax and exegetical method. Grace to you and peace. Charis humin kairene. As always, I trust you're maintaining some good discipline in your study of Greek, maintaining some kind of regular schedule as best you can within the realities of your lifestyle, and really working to master the material. Well, another motivating memo for you this week, and this one is from George Mueller, who is known for his work with orphans in Bristol, England, and even he was spending time with the biblical languages Hebrew and Greek. And while the statement here is in regard to Hebrew, the very same thing could be said about Greek. So give yourself to the study of the biblical languages. Well, here's your 5th week's assignments review. And again, be sure to access the week 5 link in the upper left-hand corner of your page to go through these, but let me just review them with you here. This week, we're dealing with tense, the present, imperfect, aorist, and future, verbal aspect you've been reading about in Campbell's book, New Testament use of the Old Testament in biblical theology. Though it looks like a full week, our objectives are 3. You should, by the end of the week, be able to recognize the use of the present, imperfect, aorist, and future tenses with due consideration giving to verbal aspect. All of this we're talking about, when we say recognition here, we're talking about syntactical recognition. You already should recognize the lexical forms of these. Then you should be able to chart the results of a biblical theology and New Testament use of Old Testament study of 1 Thessalonians 4, 5, and 6. And you should be able to discuss the grammar, semantics, and syntax of 1 John 4, 8, Acts 3, 1 to 10, and Luke 19, 41 to 43, and include biblical theology topics from these. Your reading this week in Wallace will be pages 513 through 71, dealing with the syntactical aspects of tense, the ones we've listed. You'll be reading in Bach and Fanning this week, chapters 11 and 12. 11 has to do with New Testament use of the Old Testament. Chapter 12 has to do with biblical theology, that is, biblical theology as opposed to systematic theology. They're not the same. And then in Wallace and Edwards in the workbook, you'll be doing work from chapters 13 through 19, page 129, page 140 through 142, and 145 to 146. And in Campbell, you're still reading basics of verbal aspect in biblical Greek, and this week you'll be doing chapters 7 and 8. Your first assignment is a biblical theology in 1 Thessalonians 4, 5, and 6 chart. So you want to research into the notions of the nations, not knowing God and the Lord's punishment of sinners. How does that inform your biblical theology and the way the New Testament uses the Old Testament? You need to include reflections on the rhetorical use of these allusions in your chart. Note well, see the footnotes on page 702 of your Greek text for suggested Old Testament verses to study here. Also, you should incorporate your findings into your final exegetical paper. So again, keep in mind all this work we are having you do from 1 Thessalonians 4 ought to be what you're using to fashion into your paper. It's not just copy and paste, but you're using all that you're learning in every step. Here in the weekly work, you're doing you're doing it, you're applying the step maybe to just one or 2 verses. You need to be applying all these steps to all the verses in the passage. But the better work you do each week, as we've said, the less you'll have to do on week 7 in pulling it all together. In your second assignment from the workbook, you're going to be dealing with those passages we mentioned. They're listed here again. In chapter 13, it's questions 6 and 7. In chapter 14, it's questions 9 through 21. In chapter 15, questions 8 through 18. And again, you're familiar with the process here. Again, only one discussion question this week, but after you complete your reading and other assignments, notice, after you have completed those, I hope that's how you're doing these, you provide your translation of these verses, roughly 300 words, and include observations on tense usage and list at least one biblical theological issue from each passage. So roughly 100 words there. And offer an initial answer if you've thought of one. Then after you've posted your translation, comment on the translation of at least 2 of your colleagues in the course. Again, keep in mind what you should be seeing each week, and keep in mind the principles of the discussion board. Remember what I'm looking for in your responses. Provide substantive compliments for good work or good insights that you see your peer make, and be specific. Provide kind, constructive critique for how your peer might strengthen their work, and leave each peer with a relevant, serious, open-ended question pertaining to their post. Something they can't give a simple yes or no to, but if they do give a yes or no, they've got to explain why. Or maybe it's a question that isn't yes or no, but they're just going to have to think about it to answer it, which means you've had to think about it to provide the question. That's the whole idea here, is to get some good critical thinking skills developed with regard to New Testament Greek. And again, this is the late policy that's listed here, so you don't want to be subject to that. You want to get all your work in on time, which I think most of you are doing without any problems so far. So I really appreciate that. Well, this is week 5. This is my last week in Israel. I will be leaving this Friday, the 9th of June, to fly back to the States, and hopefully be finishing up the rest of the preps for the course for week 6 and 7, either before I get back or right after I get back. But continue to pray for us for a safe flight back, and look forward to working with you as we wrap up the course in the coming final weeks. God bless.